Albert.
Hey Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, man. How are you?
Yeah, doing good. I got Dorothy, my dog, here in my lap. I don't know if you can see her, but she's see
I,
if I
I,
can.
I can't see her. Oh, there. I can just. Oh,
Here.
that's adorable. How good is that? Got two little Italian greyhounds downstairs. They're still asleep at the moment, which is good. So we'll see. We'll keep them asleep for now. But
Nice.
dude, how good are dogs? How good are dogs?
I mean, that's it. That's that they're number one. They're the best.
They are the best, and they are the best of us as
Yeah.
well. Hey man, dude, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. The film, I loved it. I thought it was truly great. I had a great time with it. I had seen Story Mansion a few years ago as well, and I was excited to talk to you today. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Great. Yeah, thanks. I always appreciate a repeat customer who's seen a couple of them. So,
Yes, I knew what I was in for, but I want to. I just guess I want to kick off. I guess I can see behind you, and you can see behind me that physical media is a very important thing to me. And obviously, at the beginning of the film, I was very impressed by Connor's VHS collection through there. So I'm just curious to start with for yourself, what role physical media has sort of played in your life? When was this discovery for you, and how has it sort of played a role in your life up until now?
yeah, as long as I've been a fan of movies and a fan of music. I've been a collector. I think both my parents are collectors. My dad has a big music collection of records and tapes, and I have all his cassette tapes now. And yeah,
Mm.
there's just something, the act of holding a thing in your hand and opening it up, and whether it's a cassette tape and you get to read the liner notes, or if it's a movie and you can, read the back cover and read quotes. And, it all stems from that feeling as a kid of going to like a video store and just seeing, all of these VHS and just having your mind blown by all the covers and posters. And I think it's just about, just chasing that high all these years later.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I was a Blockbuster kid. I worked at a Blockbuster when I was 14. It was my first job, and that was
Nice.
best job I've ever had, and best job I
Yeah.
probably ever will have, to be totally honest with you. So,
Yeah.
but I'm curious to know how that nostalgic feeling sort of kind of plays into OBEX a little bit. And I'm curious to know in the screenwriting process how you kind of used nostalgia in both a celebratory way, but a narrative way as well. Was that something that was sort of quite conscious when you were writing the script?
Yeah, well, with OBEX, there wasn't even so much of a script when we started. It was kind of made like an outline of just like 20 scenes that we could film. And yeah, it was all the scenes were just kind of about this character who wasn't leaving their house, who was obsessed with their screens, whether it's their, TV or computer. Um, and yeah, the character just kind of, I think, developed out of these ideas of what if a character in 1987 never left their house, played this new game, and the game kind of comes to life. And uh, you know, I play the lead Connor, and
Hmm.
he's not too different from me. I mean, there's obviously some differences, but like it was a character that I think is very close to my heart. And I think I'm someone that can be very happy staying at home with my tapes and my games and my dog, and just kind of next thing you know, you're like, oh, where'd that month go? I just lost a month.
I think that's a common feeling now. When I was writing down some notes, I was like that you kind of the screen obsession thing before it was a thing. Like in 1987, it wouldn't have been as common as it was now, and it kind of feels like it's. I feel like it's talking to a lot of audience members in the now as well, and I think that's part of the relatability. And there is a lot of heart in Obex. Like this is the story of a guy who has to sort of leave that comfort zone and for something he loves. I'm actually really curious to know sort of the intentionality behind getting the audiences invested in Connor and Sandy, because I was wondering if the movie would have been any different if, say, he had to go after Mary within the game.
Right.
And I'm curious to know whether you were thinking about that and sort of how you were getting the audience emotionally invested into Connor's journey.
Yeah. Well, luckily we adopted Dorothy, who plays Sandy, right around the time when this project was starting to kind of first show itself to me.
Mm.
And right away I was like, oh my gosh, if Connor has this dog and that's who he's talking to, we're gonna root for Connor, just to see him with his little dog on the sofa and running around the backyard. And so it kind of exploded the whole concept for me. And yeah, I can't even imagine if the dog wasn't in it. It doesn't seem like it works for me,
Totally.
if he's saving Mary, it's somehow we've seen that before, and
Mm,
I don't know, it just feels less pure in a way, like the love for a dog is so pure, they're so innocent, and it's the kind of thing where uh you do anything for your beloved pet, so it just felt like yeah, that was kind of there from the beginning, and I'm very glad that we decided to get a dog because I think if we hadn't, then this movie, I don't think I'd be talking to you right now.
yeah, it might. I think it'd look a little different, and obviously Dorothy is adorable and so good. And there's a great line in the film where you go, you wonder how they got the dog to do everything they did in Lassie. And there's another movie recently that came out. I don't know if you saw it, Good Boy, where it was the
Yeah.
dog horror film, right? And I was thoroughly impressed with what that dog does, and I'm impressed with what Dorothy does in this film as well. And I'm just curious to know the experience of filming with Dorothy and sort of getting her to do what you needed to do in the film.
Yeah, yeah. I saw Good Boy, and I was blown away. I was like,
Yeah.
all the little moments that they got the dog to do it. I would love to see, a 3 hour making of.
Yeah,
With
honestly, yeah.
with Dorothy, it was pretty. It wasn't too difficult because it's very similar to her kind of natural day-to-day
Yeah,
routine. We filmed it in a house here where she lives, where I live. Our crew was very small. It was just one other person, Pete. And so, I think in her mind, it was just a normal, Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon. Uh, it- you know, and if we needed her to do the same kind of thing over and over again, she was happy to do it. She takes direction really well. I'd say like, come over here and she'd go over there and then I'd say stay and she'd stay. And then usually we would knock on the door or on the wall off camera and that would be enough for her to kind of come running and barking. I had some treats in my pocket here and there when she needed a little extra coaxing, but honestly, it was almost like the easiest part of the whole thing was filming her.
or she is incredible in the film. I'm curious to talk about surrealism just in general because obviously it is a party of work within this and things like Strawberry Mansion, and I feel like surrealism kind of does naturally lend itself to some of the horror elements that do pop up at points in the film. So I'm curious to know how you sort of blend surrealism into the drama of it all, and then sort of into the comedy that does pop up as well. It's like what I guess what's your process in finding this surrealism in those sorts of genres?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been drawn to surrealist movies and surrealist art. I remember being like, I don't know, 12 years old and discovering Salvador Dali's paintings, and you're just kind of like,
Right.
you get obsessed. And I it was like my first art book, like my grandmother bought me like a Salvador Dali art book. And, I don't know why it spoke so much to me. I think just seeing worlds that aren't, that are imagined, like imaginary fantasy worlds and characters and creatures and, um, growing up with like movies like The Never-Ending Story or Labyrinth that are,
Totally.
you know, just very fantastical and they show you things that just don't exist. But they are able, it's like magic, they show you these things. So surrealism and just, kind of like I love the mining of dreams and nightmares and visions
Mm,
for art making and looking at these things deep inside of us and often those can be maybe some surreal places or liminal spaces and that's the for me the joy of making movies is this kind of creating a world, like I'm not a documentary filmmaker. I mean, maybe someday, but right now what interests me is creating a whole entire new place or world. Connor's world, uh, it's a little bit different than it actually would have been in 1987. Um, but hopefully these surrealist elements kind of I think what you said about like the drama like I you don't want them just to be weird for weird's sake, you
right.
hope that they can connect to something real or true or like an emotion or something from reality so that it can kind of they can enhance it's like that enhancing of what is real through the surreal space
Yeah.
and the comedy too. I mean, I think I love laughing and I think it always kind of naturally pops up in things that I do. And it's not, I'm not trying to like make a comedy where you're laughing out loud, but it's just, it's kind of I love absurdity and just like
Yeah,
how weird the world is and how strange it is to be alive and just like pointing, showing a mirror at like just the strangeness. And I think that can be funny and
yeah.
kind of find that sweet spot between like dark and light at the same time and funny and sad and I'll put it in this little blender and then hopefully a movie comes out the other end.
I, I I I agree with you in the sense of like I think surrealism as well also kind of weirdly makes sense of aspects of the world as well. Like that is something that surrealism has definitely formed a lot of my comedy stylings. Like I'm a big fan of Tim and Eric. I love
Oh,
Jason Trost's films as well. So I'm a big fan of your films as well. And then these surreal elements of them that really sort of weirdly make sense of that absurdity that we're all trying to figure out as well, which I think is speaks like the power of cinema as well in that way. I
definitely.
um I'm curious to talk about sort of the technical stuff because obviously it's OBEX is in black and white, and I know this is it's a low budget, it's an indie film, but when you are thinking about sort of the set and the production design, and if you were knowing you were going to do this in black and white, how you were sort of figuring out color to use to make certain aspects of the black and white pop out, what was sort of that technical aspect in getting the black and white right, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, a part of it was, with a movie like Strawberry Mansion, where it's very colorful and kind of like there's artwork throughout the movie on walls and every kind of inch of the her home is covered. With this, it was like let's go in the opposite direction where it's very kind of like bleak, very sparse walls. Like I wanted Connor's world to mostly just feel like it comes through these screens and through his tapes and so actually in like my own house here, I took a lot of stuff down off the walls and just tried to make it feel a little bit more barren. And like same thing with Connor's outfit. It was just like black pants, white shirt,
Totally.
uh, just kind of knowing that those will look kind of the most kind of intense on black and white. Um, I didn't want to like get lost in any grays or kind of like patterns of his outfit. So that was kind of the extent of it. And then, just kind of like in the edit and in the post-production, just kind of riding that line of like the contrast and trying to find like what's too dark, what's too light, see if we can like accentuate some shadows here and there. But, I think that's the beauty of black and white is most of the time it just looks really it does you don't have to do too much to it. It looks just like how it looks, right out we shot it in black and white. We didn't change it in post. It was like baked in, so there was no kind of option to change it or anything.
Right. And it looks incredible. And because you mentioned that stark difference between story management in this and sort of the visual language of both the films. I'm curious to know just from a filmmaking perspective and the joy that you said you find in making movies. Is that something that you sort of consciously doing you when you look for the next project and when sort of OBEX was sort of formulating in your mind? Were you looking for something that was quite different to do from a technical level as well, or do you just sort of go with the flow of idea, I guess?
Yeah, so yeah, Kentucky and I made Strawberry Mansion that came out in 2021,
Mm,
and we've been developing kind of like our spiritual sequel. It's not like a direct sequel, but
mm,
that project, which we're still working on, it's quite bigger, and that one's going to be very colorful, and
yeah,
people could see Strawberry Mansion and say, "Oh, right, this feels like their next film."
mm,
But because that is bigger and requires, more budget and all of that, it takes time and I think in the process of kind of trying to get that going and the forward momentum of that then comes to a stop and then gets forward again, it's just kind of this on and off again thing. Um, Obex kind of was born out of that desire to like, let me just do something else entirely. Let me do something, I thought it would be quick and then ended up being a couple years, but it's I think it just grew out of that desire to make something. And so it kind of makes sense that it is a different look and a different style. But I think with all these projects, they all share some DNA. They share some common themes or images if you're paying attention.
mm. I'll close out on this and obviously with Connor's love for uh the media of that time and whatnot. And Obex is this exciting. Like I love the reveal he finds Obex in the magazine. He's like, that's how we sort of used to discover things back then. We
Yeah.
didn't have the internet to tell us we had 9 months till a movie or a game comes out where you find something and you're like, I like that, I want to get it. I'm curious to know what your Obex was growing up. You mentioned the Salvador Dali art book and stuff, and maybe not necessarily a video game, but what was that thing that you found through pure discovery when you were
Hmm.
growing up?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of maybe the original Zelda,
Oh wow, yeah.
I I think it was one of those things when I got the Nintendo, um, I had a couple games and then yeah, it was like before that period of like you didn't know what games were the best ones or what to get or something, but somehow maybe it was like the gold cartridge or something. Somehow within those
Mm,
first couple of weeks, I saved up some money or something or mowed the lawn or something and I got that first Zelda, and then it's one of those things where yeah, I just played it and played it and played it and then started to discover, you know, old Nintendo Power issues and things and they had maps and I just replayed it a couple years ago and it was just as fun as it was, when I was 8 years old. So it's and yeah, it wasn't like I was anticipating, I think by the time I bought it, it had already been out for a couple years at that point, maybe, or but yeah, games just seem to like find you somehow, or maybe, you know, word of mouth or something, but they just, you didn't know too much about them when you would play them. And sometimes you would get a game and it would be really bad. And you think, oh no, I've wasted money on this, but most of the time they were pretty good.
That's yeah. It's crazy how much it's changed nowadays, and we kind of get to see. And sometimes it's good. Like I like it when it comes to movie making. I like seeing sort of behind the scenes and knowing things are coming up. But sometimes the sense of discovery these days is gone, and I wish we could find a way to bring it back, like the video store, right? Like I think we kind of yearn for it.
Totally. Yeah. And, nowadays it's like if you see the trailer, sometimes you're like, ooh, I wish I hadn't seen that. Maybe that was giving me too much. Or
Mm,
there's some joy about just showing up to a movie knowing nothing and just sitting down and seeing what's gonna hit you. Those are definitely maybe some of the most fun I've had in movie theaters is when I had zero expectations.
yeah, I think it's just such an awesome thing, especially for people like us who love being in front of a screen and watching cool shit get made. So, Alec,
Definitely.
dude, like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm a fan of your work. I loved Obex. I'm excited to see this spiritual sister sequel to Story Mansion when it does arrive, and I hope we get to chat for that, man. I really appreciate you taking the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, definitely. I hope it's not too long. We're working, we're chipping away at it, and
Nice.
yeah, thanks for talking, Nick.
No,
I
I appreciate
appreciate
it.
it.
And nice to meet Dorothy as well. She's so good. She's such a placid dog. That's so beautiful. If I had the little greyhounds here, they would have been, yeah, we wouldn't have got an interview out of it. So I
Right.
appreciate your
Yeah.
time, man. Thank you so much. We'll talk
All
to you
right.
soon.
Take care, Nick.